Guten Morgen, it's Morgan. Welcome to Murder in the Morning. So today we're going to talk about Son of Sal, Salvatore Perrone. So usually I will do my makeup while I do these videos just to get ready in the morning, but I'm actually about to go to Hawaii, so I'm doing a full skincare day. So I'm going to do my skincare while we talk about Salvatore. So Salvatore was born in 1948 in Staten Island. He was a kind of a fashion Mongol. He wanted to do fashion and kind of just be like a moving thrift store. So it was told that he was the in-between, he was the middleman. So people would design it and then he would sell it to people to then go sell it to retailers to then sell to the customer. He would have multiple retailers that were friends that would just, buy the articles of clothing, and then that's how he made a living. So he was married and had one child. So his wife left and took the kid with her because he was just not financially stable, and it was making him act out, just very irritable, angry. So they ended up getting a divorce, and he did have a girlfriend at this time. He was 65 years old, and he was known by all of his neighbors to just carry around this big black, it was they said it was 4 feet long duffel bag. And he would, when people would ask him what was in there, he would say, "It's nothing, none of your business." But at the same time, he would say to some people that it was the clothes that he was selling. So I don't think that's if I were a retailer, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of weird just having a bag of clothes that you're bringing to me to sell to me, instead of I don't know, setting it up more. But he was known to do kind of door-to-door sales of the clothing. The first victim was Mohammed Jabeli. He was 65 years old, and he was killed at his clothing store, Valentino Fashion, on July 6, 2012. So this was Salvatore's friend that he had done business with in the past. And so what happened was Salvatore came in at closing time. He was kind of known for coming in when people were trying to close or already had closed, and he was just like, I just need one more thing. So it wasn't that out of character for him to show up. And so I'm sure that's why Mohammed, still let him come in the shop, because he was known to do that. And they knew each other. They were kind of friends, more acquaintances, but they knew each other. And Mohammed was found by another friend who saw the lights still on in the shop and was like, they're supposed to be closed already. So he went in to just check on his friend, and he found the body of Mohammed. He had a single gunshot wound to the neck. The police came and they said they almost missed the body because it was covered in clothes from the store. So it was kind of buried under these clothes, but the clothes did have blood splatter on them. And the cops at first thought that this was just a robbery gone wrong because the cash register was empty. So they're like, okay, so this was probably just a robbery gone wrong. But they were able to find the shell casing, and it was identified to be a .22 caliber for a rifle. So they're like, okay, at least we have this evidence to help us in finding this person. The second victim was Isaac Kader. He was 59 years old, and he was also found dead in his shop. It was the 99-cent store in Bensonhurst, with a gunshot wound to the head and 2 stab wounds to the neck. So it said his throat was slit, and then it was also given another stab in the neck. So it was shortly after closing time, and the cops were able to find another .22 caliber shell casing, so they knew that these were most likely related. And then when they did forensics on it, they found that it was the same. Not only the same caliber, but it was shot from the same gun. And they were starting to connect the dots because they're both around closing time. These were both men that were alone in the stores. They were the owners, and they were both from Middle Eastern descent. So they're thinking, not only is this probably a serial killer, but it also could be a hate crime. So after sifting through a ton of surveillance, unfortunately there were no video cameras in the shop, or like neither store had security cameras set up. So that is unfortunate because that could have solved the problem right there. But police started looking at surveillance around the area so that they could see if someone was fleeing the scene, all of that stuff. So they took a picture of, well, they caught someone on surveillance fleeing from the scene, and they were carrying a big duffel bag. Because the other thing is, the cops were like, well, someone wouldn't just be walking around with a rifle because someone would have called the cops, right? So they're like, they had to have been carrying a bag or something like that, looking for someone fleeing the scene close by, and that is carrying like a duffel bag or, you know, just some sort of bag, because they're not going to be running around just with the open gun. Otherwise, people would have seen that, noticed that, called the cops. So they find, after going through all the surveillance, they find what they called John Doe duffel bag. So they post it in the newspaper, and they're like, has anybody seen this guy? Does anyone know who this is? And many of the neighbors of Salvatore's neighbors are like, yeah, we know exactly who that guy is. Also, in the newspaper, they're trying to address other store owners and saying like, hey, maybe don't stay out so late, like don't be open as late, and don't be alone, like try and protect yourself in case this guy is gonna come for more people. The final victim was found on November 16th. The final victim was found dead on November 16th. Ramatola Vahidpour, 78-year-old, was shot in the head, the chest, and the face. He was found in his clothing shop in the Prospect Lefferts Gardens neighborhood, and they were able to find the shell casings for that murder as well. All of the victims were covered by different items in their store. So the second one was covered with a pan and a box, and then both the clothing store ones were found covered in their clothes, the store clothes. So November 16th, the day that he killed the last victim, his girlfriend at the time, but now ex-girlfriend, she said that that same day, which would be 2 hours after the murder, he was dancing at a nightclub. Both of them, they were dancing, and she said that he tore it up on the dance floor at the Crystal Dance in Benhurst around 9:15 p.m. So the murder would have been at like 7 p.m. She said, I didn't see any change in him. He's a dancer, he's a talker, so he was dancing and he was talking to people and just living it up, having a good time, which is interesting because he was like 65 years old. So I'm like, wow, good for him, but also like not, that's horrible. So she was able to identify him and her in surveillance that was taken at the club and was played for the jury. They were dating for 5 years, and 4 days after the third killing, he was arrested. So he was arrested for the connection of the shell casings and the rifle, because he was the one known for purchasing it, the rifle, and because of his neighbors able to identify him. So they look through the duffel bag and they call it the kill kit because it contained a rifle and the knife that were both the murder weapons. It also had a box of bullets and dried blood, but it was not released whether the blood related to any of the victims. So after hours of interrogating him, he said multiple things. He said some random guy just came up to me and handed me the duffel bag. I didn't know there was a rifle in it. I never even looked at it. And so they're like, okay, so he just happened to have a duffel bag that had the rifle, and they're like, but this is your duffel bag, right? And he was like, yeah, I own like 4 or 5. When they showed him the surveillance, they're like, but this is you. He's like, yeah, I own like 4 or 5, like they just carry the clothes, like I said. Then when they ask him more questions, he changes his story and says that he's actually a secret agent for the CIA in the Palestinian sector, and his job was to kill Palestinians, Israelis. And so when they said, okay, well, how come 2 of them are actually Egyptian? And he goes, oh, I don't know, like that. I just was doing my job. I just did what I was told to do. And maybe they said they're Egyptian, but you know, we don't know that. We don't actually know. So he's like, check my computer. I have tons of correspondence from the CIA. And so they go to his computer and they're like, hey, what's the password? And he says, Golden 22. The detective said that they like laughed to themselves and they're like, are you serious? because apparently, I think it's either James Bond. I think they said James Bond, or yeah. Like Golden's like some thing that has to do with that. I've never seen it. And 22 is the caliber of rifle that he was using to kill people. So they're like, are you serious? So I guess it became a running joke in their precinct to just be like, hey, Golden 22. So they look through his computer and they're like, nope, there's no correspondence between you and the CIA, no one telling you to kill these people. And he's like, oh, they must have deleted it. They must have erased it, obviously. And a bunch of people said, like, he's just playing crazy so that I can get away with it. He thinks that we're actually gonna believe him. So they don't really know if he targeted people because he thought they were Middle Eastern, or if that's just the excuse he came up with afterward to like saying, oh yeah, like I'm part of the CIA, and he was like, oh, actually they're all Middle Eastern, so let me say like this is connected, kind of thing. So it's interesting because he does implicate himself and say, yes, I did do these killings, but I was doing it for the CIA. And then other times he says, nope, I'm innocent, like I never did this, someone just handed me a bag. But also other items, like the knife was found at his girlfriend's place, which she has never been considered a suspect. But it's just like, okay, so if some random guy handed you the duffel bag, then why is there other evidence at your girlfriend's house? Like, was she the one who had some guy give you this random duffel bag and frame you? Anyways, he just keeps saying, I'm being set up. But he does end up, going to trial. And 12 jurors find him guilty. But for some reason, he was only, well, I think the reason was he was given second-degree murder, and I think it's because he was more doing a crime of opportunity. So he just like noticed that these people were alone and it was late. He'd be able to get in there because they knew him, and he'd be able to kill them. I think they took out like it wasn't premeditated necessarily, even though I think it was if he was carrying around a duffel bag of like a rifle. He knew he was going to kill someone, he just didn't know who. But he was sentenced to the maximum sentence in New York, which was 75 years in prison. And the judge said, like, this is too good for you. And it only took the jury 30 minutes to convict him, to find him guilty of these murders. The families of the victims were able to talk to him, and they said, I just want to know why you did it. One of them said, my dad was so good to you. He was so kind to you. He always knew that you'd come in late or like right as they're closing up, and he would stay open just for you. He had nothing but love and friendship for you. And how could you do this to him? And how could you do this to my family? Like, we knew you. How could you do this? Why? He was just saying over and over again, why? And Salvatore just answers back and says, I didn't do this. Like, I'm being set up. I'm not the one who did this. He's like, you want to know why? I didn't do it, so I couldn't tell you why. Anyways, the son just started yelling at him, and it was like, you son of you're a piece of crap. Other people started joining in, and they were like, you're a liar. And it was just like crazy. Everyone just started yelling at each other, and Salvatore's just like, well, if you really cared, then you try and figure it out. And the judge is like, okay. So people just like left. People are just like leaving the courthouse, dipping, and the judge was like, Salvatore, you're a liar. We all know it. He literally said that. He was like, we all know that you're a liar and you're a piece of crap. So we don't want to hear anything else you have to say. And when Salvatore was supposed to do his apologies to the family, he wrote a 25-minute, like, saying, like, these are my alibis, these are the, I'm being set up, here's the person that did this, blah, 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 blah. And if, no one wanted to hear that, and he just kept interrupting throughout the sentencing. He just kept interrupting and saying, like, well, this isn't even true. And it was just like very chaotic, disrespectful. I can't even imagine for the families. Like, all you want is to just find out like why someone killed your family member when they were so good to them. So Salvatore is going to be in prison for the rest of his life. He was diagnosed with severe personality and delusion disorder, but was declared fit for trial. And yeah, I think that he knew what was going on. I think he knew what he was doing. I don't really know why. I feel like he just had no control, and he wanted to seem important almost. Like, he wanted to seem like a big shot who made it. Like, yeah, maybe my fashion business didn't work out, but hey, I'm with the CIA and I'm important. Somebody needs me, because his wife didn't need him, his kid didn't need him. So that's the only thing I can think of as to why he would do this. But yeah, 65 years old, so crazy. And they ultimately decided that it wasn't a hate crime, because it was second degree. So they decided like it wasn't premeditated, and he didn't pick them out specifically. It was more just like of opportunity. So super sad. The families are heartbroken, obviously crushed. That is the story of the son of Salvatore Perrone. And stay safe out there, guys. If you own a store, get security cameras 100%, because that would have saved the lives of the other two men. And also, don't lock up alone. But basically, if you know a guy in your neighborhood and carries around a massive duffel bag, look out. Bye.